orcs lying in the defensive trenches and strewn over the meadows in front of the city. Some of the locals are busy throwing the bodies on pyres, while others repair the minor damage done to the city wall. You enter the city and the garrison at its centre without being spoken to. It is only when you reach a heavy oak door that leads, you assume, to the commanding officer's headquarters, that you are halted by a guard.
Dwarves, eh? Seems we aren't to be spared anything these days. What do you want?
It looks like you've got an orc problem.
Had. Our scouts detected the army early on, and we were able to repel them without any great losses. A small army of orcs like that couldn't breach our mighty walls.
Your mighty walls look like they're about to collapse under their own weight!
The soldier isn't intimidated by Tungdil. He juts his chin out confidently.
At least they stopped the orcs, unlike your dwarven walls in the north.
I didn't know that Steepleton was so big. Impressive place.
We have fertile meadows. That's what we have to thank for the city's growth in recent years. At the time of my grandparents, Steepleton was nothing more than the tower on a hill with a couple of houses. Now we have a market, a temple, and of course, there are royal messengers stationed in the tower, which doesn't do the city's coffers any harm at all.
You said you had messengers here. I'd like to send a carrier pigeon to Lot Yonan in Yonendar.
Lot Yonan in Yonendar. No problem. It will cost you 90 gold pieces.
If the carrier pigeon delivers my message safely to Lot Yonan, then it's worth its weight in gold.
Then I'll send for a scribe. You can dictate your message and
Thank you, but I can write it myself. Paper and ink will be sufficient.
The guard nods. You don't blame him for thinking you are illiterate. Very few ordinary folk can read or write. Once you've been given the writing implements, you write down a summary of what happened at the meeting of the Alf and the Orcs.
I must speak with your commander.
Commander Valor doesn't have time. He's still very busy dealing with the aftermath of the orc attack.
Commander Valor is dealing with the orc problem, and I have important information concerning it. I witnessed a meeting of the orc lords.
The guard eyes you with interest and tries to judge whether you can be trusted. Finally, he stands up, opens a door, and enters the room ahead of you. The commander looks up from his work. The guard repeats what you told him.
Your information about the orcs could be useful. We have fought them back, but not yet defeated them. Come in.
The commander listens attentively, and now and then asks questions, as you tell him about the 3 orc armies and the meeting of the chieftains with the Alf Sintharas.
This sounds very grave. I will send out messengers. We must be prepared.
The orc army that attacked you was able to escape?
What was left of it? They headed south. Unfortunately, I can't send anyone after them until the damage to the wall is repaired.
To the south? Towards Scalebrook, perhaps? We defeated an army of orcs down there. It wasn't an easy fight, but they'd already taken a bit of a beating. By Steepleton's soldiers, I assume.
The commander looks at you and seems torn for a moment. Then he pulls himself together.
Perhaps you didn't know, but the administration had a bounty on the heads of that horde of orcs. Here, this gold is well deserved.
We must press on. Farewell, Commander Valor.
Kill as many orcs as you can, dwarves. Palandir will be with you.
While taking a rest, you see a cart trundling along the road not far away from you. A young couple are sitting on the box seat, clearly in love and more interested in each other than the rest of the world around them. The sight reminds you of a long, unanswered question.
So, I was wondering, what do female dwarves look like?
Pretty. Very pretty.
Uh-huh.
You were expecting a little more information.
Do they have beards?
No, I would say it's more like fluff. Oh, very attractive.
And what do they do? I mean, are they warriors too?
In our kingdom, most take care of domestic life. They take the animals down to the meadows in the valleys, make sure the larders are full and that there's plenty of good beer, and make our clothes.
It only ever causes problems when men and women stand shoulder to shoulder in battle.
Some of them are talented stonemasons and smiths, and beware of insulting their skills. They are no less proud than we are.
You arrive at a crossroads with a tavern on the corner. A warm light is emanating from its window, lighting up the road around it. A stone sculpture of a sheep stands in front of the door, and above it a sign, swaying gently in the breeze, reads, "The Stone Sheep." You observe the surroundings, but the road is empty and no one leaves the tavern. You notice a broken window on the first floor, which has been boarded up with planks. Something wet drips onto your nose, and you look up to the cloudy sky with a bad-tempered expression.
Huh! Why are we standing here and just getting wet from the outside?
You enter the tavern with a determined stride, and are greeted by a thick wall of pipe smoke. The dozen or so drinkers at the tables turn towards you, then give each other astonished and slightly worried looks. In the tavern there are half a dozen people sitting at the tables, and just as many at the bar, clearly farmers and labourers from the surrounding villages. Boindale pays no attention to the other guests and trudges over to a table. Together with his brother, you follow him and sit down. The landlord comes out from behind the bar.
What can I get you?
You hear surly muttering from one of the tables.
What are groundlings doing showing their faces here, now of all times?
You turn to the guest who'd muttered something about groundlings.
And why is it so strange that we're here?
The man glances up briefly and then stares drunkenly at his tankard and mutters with a slur,
Don't play the innocent. The orcs are terrorizing our lands. And whose fault is it? You let them in.
I was not at the stone gateway, and I don't know what happened. But you can be sure of one thing. Dwarves would never cooperate with orcs. We kill them no sooner than we say them, or my name isn't Boindale Doubleblade.
The drunkard and his neighbour are given a start. They mumble an apology and turn their attention to the beer in front of them.
I wouldn't mind a pint of ale.
The landlord nods and takes the twins' order too. Shortly after, he returns with your beers and puts them down in front of you.
Is that all?
You stand up and turn to the room.
This round's on me.
The faces of the guests and the landlord brighten up immediately. The landlord gets to work pulling everyone a beer and handing out the tankards. Some of the guests say cheers to you as they get their drinks.
Did two travellers pass this way? One was a famulus, the other a mercenary.
The landlord shakes his head indifferently and mumbles something incoherently. One of the guests is about to say something, but shuts up when the person next to him gives him a poke.
Come on now, tell us what happened. We're all friends here.
The man who was going to speak the first time round looks over to his neighbour, who nods.
Two travellers spent the night here. One had a robe on, the other was a mercenary. The next day they left, all in a hurry. Said they'd been attacked by an elf.
One of the other drinkers finds his voice too.
There was a hell of a lot of noise that night. As if there'd been a dust-up.
Well, there's some gold here for the trouble. I thought they meant the noise, but then I noticed the broken window.
The landlord sighs.
Please, don't tell anyone else about this. Who would want to spend a night in a tavern where an elf has been sighted?
We're tired and long for a proper bed.
Of course, gentlemen.
You spend a restful night in the tavern and then head off on your way again. You arrive at a small, bustling village. One thing is clearly missing from the lively scene: the sound of metal on metal from the village smithy that would normally be heard above everything else at this time of day. A dour, grim-looking man is sitting in front of the forge with his right arm in a sling. His expression brightens as he sees you, and he jumps to his feet.
Dear Dwarves, could I interest you in helping me in my workshop for a day?
The man's expression is somewhere between desperation and hope. As you don't answer immediately, he continues.
You will, of course, be royally rewarded for your work. I can offer you 100 gold pieces.
I could help you, but compared to human standards, I'm a master smith, so my services will cost you more.
The smith gulps.
More? How much?
Double. My services should be worth that.
Anger and indignation are written across the man's face.
That's much too much. I could have the smith in the neighbouring village do my work for cheaper. I won't pay more than I offered. Take it or leave it.
You say goodbye and leave. After only a few steps, the resigned voice of the smith calls you back.
All right, all right. Double.
A little later, you are standing in the workshop, examining the smith's inferior tools, while he fires up the forge and prepares everything for the job, as well as he can, with just one good arm. You weren't able to persuade the twins to help you. As warriors, they'd rather go hunting, Boindil declared. But you think it's more probable that you'll find them drinking beer. But you don't care. You're excited about being able to smith again after such a long time. Hours later, you have forgotten everything around you. The heat of the forge, the sweat on your warm skin, the play of the flames. You're in your element and work as if in a trance. The smith left the workshop ages ago with a satisfied grin on his face.
Right, I'm talking to you.
You look up in surprise. Everything but the beating of the hammer had ceased to exist, and you didn't notice that someone has come in.
Can you do it?
You immediately dislike the middle-aged man. He sounds you out so doggedly with his light grey eyes that it feels as though he wants to look right through you and into your deepest thoughts. The man points to two horses.
Those two, in 1 hour.
I'm sorry. Too much to do. Try somewhere else.
You got a nerve, you little rat.
The man moves menacingly close, his hand on his sword, when the man with grey eyes holds him back.
Not here.
The angry mercenary glares briefly at his leader before stomping out of the forge.
I thank you for your help, Mr. Dwarf. Perhaps we'll meet again.
The men leave the workshop. You ignore the horsemen and concentrate on your work. When you tell the twins about your visitors later on, they know exactly who you're talking about. They encountered them on the way back from hunting. You spend the night in the smith's house and continue on your way, with your well-earned reward the next morning. In the early evening, you make an unusual discovery on the side of the road. A colourful trader's wagon has been carelessly abandoned, with not a soul in sight.
I don't like the look of this one bit, Boindil. You take a look around there, I'll stay on this side. Tungdil, you check the surrounding area, and be careful.
You scan the road and the woods on both sides. Apart from the twins who are fighting their way through the undergrowth within earshot, you can't hear or see anyone. The wagon itself isn't damaged, nor is the drawbar, but the belts and leashes that normally hold the draft animals have been cut clean through. You can see a lot of tracks in the mud around the wagon, hoof prints and footprints from humans in heavy boots. At least half a dozen long ones must have approached the wagon from the woods on both sides. The dwindling daylight provides little light inside the wagon. It smells of leather, spices, and candles. And there's another smell in the air, which you can't quite place. It reminds you of your forge in Lot Yonan's vaults, but different. It is messy, but no more so than you would expect from a single dwarf. The bed is rumpled, and there are tools and leftover materials piled up on the little workbench. There are several cupboards hanging on the right-hand wall. At the end of the wagon, there's a large wardrobe, and next to the door on the left is a heavy wooden chest with rusty metal hinges. The smaller cupboards are piled high with a multitude of tins and boxes, all filled with odds and ends that the trader offered for sale to customers on his trips. Nothing of real interest. You reach for the knob of the wardrobe and then stop. The rug in front of the wardrobe squelches as you step on it, as if you had stepped in a puddle. You try to work out what has soaked the rug, when suddenly the door of the wardrobe springs open and something bounces into you. You take a step back, and the realization of what hit you makes you take two more. Lying on the floor in front of you is the body of a dwarf, headless. His head has been cut clean from his neck. The dwarf is wearing clothes that look more like human robes and bears no coat of arms that would identify his kingdom. You didn't know him, but no one deserves to die like this. His head has been cut off cleanly, probably with a sharp blade. A quick glance in the wardrobe confirms what you already suspect. The dwarf's head is nowhere to be seen. As you try to lift the lid of the chest, you realize that the lock has been broken out of the wood. You open the lid and look inside. Amongst clothes and some empty boxes, you find a loot case and a beautiful loot of the kind that humans build, as well as a bag of bread and cured meat. You take the loot. You can't play, but an instrument like this is worth good gold. You take the bread and the cured meat. The extra provisions should keep you going for a few days. You give a short, sharp whistle, and the twins come running at the double. You tell them what you found.
A group of horsemen with heavy boots has been here, and I found Mort in the wagon, beheaded. I have a hunch that the mercenaries from Fallow Rock have something to do with this.
Wretched dwarf killers!
You can tell that Boindil wants revenge and can understand his feelings well. You wrap the body in linen, dig a hole in the woods, and place the body in it. You lay a couple of his tools and other personal belongings you found in the wagon next to him. You wish there was more you could do for him. You continue on your journey in gloomy spirits. You come across an orchard next to a farmstead and surrounded by several fields of wheat. You don't see anyone working in the fields, but there's a young man lying under an apple tree. He has his legs crossed and a straw hat is covering his face.
Excuse me, but we're looking for a group of mercenaries. Have they passed by here?
The young man is startled. He must have nodded off. He looks around anxiously. When he sees you, the fear disappears from his face and is replaced by curiosity. It seems to you that the man is sizing you up.
And if I answer, what's in it for me?
If you can't help us, we'd be happy to ask the owner of the farmstead. We'll just tell him that the man sleeping in the shade of the orchard sent us. What do you think?
The man seems to size you up, and then a crooked smile spreads across his face.
All right, you caught me. The people rode northwest. But please don't tell Father Mullen.
There's no reason for that if you told the truth. So, northwest, you say?
You continue on your journey, while the lazy labourer sinks back into the grass. The first thing you notice as you enter the village of Clintal is how quiet it is. There is hardly a soul in the streets, and the few people you do see immediately disappear into their houses as you get closer. Boindil draws his axes, and Boendal his raven's beak.
Something's not quite right here. Be alert.
You walk on until you reach the village square. Without a word, men enter the square from the left and the right, cutting off your way. You recognize the leader of the group of mercenaries, looking you over with a satisfied expression. Standing next to him is a frail man with greying hair, who doesn't seem able to cope with the situation. He tries several times to say something, but can't find the right words.
Are you going to kill us just like you killed the travelling trader?
The leader of the mercenaries shakes his head sadly and seems shaken.
You fiends want to lay the blame on us? You damn murderers! Murderers? Come here, dwarf killer!
Are you denying your terrible deed? You were seen murdering poor old Mort, one of your kind, in cold blood.
The old man points unnecessarily to the leader of the mercenaries.
So apparently you saw us committing murder, but you didn't intervene? And then you overtook us and only set a trap for us now, and here, several days' journey from the place where it happened. Your story doesn't seem to make much sense.
We knew that the good people of Clinton would stand by us in confronting you. Mort was well known and respected around here.
But how did you know that we would come to Clinton of all places? If you were really tracking us, that wouldn't have been possible. But if you, on the other hand, were the ones being tracked, then it would have been easy for you to steer us into this trap.
He does have a point, Medarin. Why did you?
The village elder stops mid-sentence as the leader of the mercenaries draws his sword. The village elder turns from the mercenary to look at you, and then gives his men a signal to withdraw.
Watch out for the archers.
What is it?
Huh?
Huh?
And what now? What is it? What is it?
And again. Vile creature.
All right. Yes. And what now?
On my way.
What is it? Yes, yes. What is it?
Huh?
I'm with you.
Yes.
Huh? I didn't hit you very hard.
Yes.
On my way. All right. Yes. On my way. What is it? Yes.
Huh? Huh?
What is it? Too easy. And what now? I didn't hit you very hard.
Huh?
Huh? What is it? What is it?
Understood.
Yes! Of course! Yeah! And what now?
Yes, I'll be ready soon.
Yes?
What is it?
Another one bites the dust.
Yeah!
The last of the mercenaries falls to the ground, but Boindil is still in the frenzy of battle. You and Boendal have to physically restrain him until he comes to his senses. Otherwise, you'd have stormed the houses to find more adversaries. You walk up to the body of the mercenaries' leader and search his pockets. You soon find something. A letter.
An anonymous client seeks dwarf skulls cleanly cut, shorn, and put into jars with honey. 1,000 gold coins will be paid for each skull. Khan, Bounty Hunters Guild Master.
That's bounty hunters hunting for dwarves. Despicable.
You hold the letter aloft so that everyone can see it.
Look, citizens of Clintel, proof that these men are the killers. They are bounty hunters hunting for dwarves.
The village elder comes out of one of the houses, flanked by other villagers. You ignore their weapons, as well as their sinister expressions, and hand over the letter.
It would seem you are telling the truth. And you only killed those who deceived us. I thank you for this.
The village elder signals to a woman, and a few moments later, she brings you food and a bag of gold.
Take this in thanks for your actions.
You approach the village and can tell even from far off that something isn't right. The smell of burnt wood and death is in the air.
By Vracus.
The piggies have really shown those pointy ears. We couldn't have done it any better.
Stay alert. I want to find out what happened to Garen.
The elf maiden's graceful snow-white face still radiates beauty, in terrible contrast to the rest of her appearance. From the neck down, she is nothing more than a blood-red, damp and glistening skeleton. There are long nails sticking through her thin bones, and where her beautiful eyes once were, are now gaping black holes. The smell of the smoke has accompanied you for a while now, but here, so close to the bodies, it is masked by the sweet smell of death. You have a bitter taste in your mouth and have to pull yourself together to avoid vomiting in disgust. The hand that painted this picture was that of a master. It is composed exclusively in shades of red, but every single little detail is painstakingly and precisely reflected. Trees, the remains of buildings, bodies. You hesitate.
This picture portrays the village in its state of ruin.
Examining the canvas more closely, you realize that it is actually made of skin, and the red paint seems more than suspicious now.
This is the most disgusting thing I have ever seen. Hoofprints! Burned into the ground!
Alfar?
The fire in Boindill's eyes flares up with delight.
Huzzah! That would make a change from those stupid Peggies. Did you hear that, brother? We might get to test our blades on Tion's pointy ears.
You have read about the elves and their buildings. This here had always just been a small example of their architectural skill, which achieved perfection in Alandur. Now burning and ruined, the pavilion makes an even sadder impression. Green Glade was one of the few places in Girdlegard where humans and elves lived together. You don't see any elven features among all the faces contorted with pain and fear. You look away. The body of the man is riddled with arrows and is lying in a small patch of undamaged ground, while a sea of flames must have raged in a circle around him. The robes remind you of those of Lot Yonan's famuli. This, plus the fact that the man used magic, makes you quite sure that this is Garen.
Garen had these books on him when he was attacked. Was he trying to bring them to safety?
Your eyes fall upon a sealed letter next to the books. The circumstances seem grave enough for you to break the seal.
Greetings, Turga. I am glad to hear that you finally wish to confide in Lot Yonan. I have found out something new about the demon. It's all written in these books. I think they are the key to his destruction, or I hope so, at least. Yours faithfully, Goren. What demon are they talking about?
You instinctively think about how the magical barrier is only a few days' march north of here, and beyond it, Varakas only knows what kind of creatures live in the Perish Land.
You destroyed my painting. Now I need fresh blood to paint a new one.
Huzzah! This will be fun! We finally get to fight!
I hope your blood doesn't clot too much. It has to be nice and fluid for my fine brushstrokes.
Ha! How do you plan to defeat us, pointy ears? There are 3 of us!
Oh, only 3. That makes it easier.
She looks over the corpses.
Otharin Lueth Buanre!
What's happening?
That's the perished land.
Impossible! Green Glade is south of the barrier.
I know of nothing else that can resurrect the dead. Knock their heads off or they'll keep coming back.
Yes? And what now? Huh? Yeah!
I can't do that yet!
What is it? I didn't hit you very hard!
Yes?
Who's next? Yes? What is it?
Huh?
What is it?
Don't rush me!
What now?
Vile creature!
What is it?
Yes?
And again, what is it? Huh? is it? What is it? Oh, easy.
Put up a fight! Vile creature!
Yes?
Huh?
Huh? I didn't hit you very hard.
Huh?
Yeah! And again. Who's next? What is it? Ow! Another one bites the dust. Too easy.
Huh? Huh?
Huh? What is it? Yeah!
Yes?
And what now?
Huh?
Yes? Oh, you didn't hit you very hard.
Yes?
And again. What is it? And what now? Huh? Who's next?
They're hitting me pretty hard!
I'll be ready soon.
Yes?
What is it? And what now? Too easy. Huh?
Huh? Yes?
What is it? I didn't hit you very hard. Who's next? What is it?
Vile creature!
Yes?
Yes! Huh?
What is it?
Dwarves, you protected the glade.
The perished land. The barrier has fallen.
You can feel your stomach cramping. Unlike Boindil, you can't say a word.
The damn mage, I only had one job!
So this is what it is like to rise from the dead. I feel nothing. I am left with nothing. My love, my beauty, my home, and my forest. Everything has been taken from me. I beg you, have mercy and put an end to my suffering.
Without even being able to look into her eyes, you recognize the sadness in the elf maiden's expression. The dignity that she must once have radiated can only be imagined in her current state.
Garen was here, and I've heard that you elves have special abilities in battle. Did the Alfar take you by surprise in your sleep?
I felt her presence, but when I confronted the elf, she had already killed the first of us and resurrected the perished land. It fills humans and dwarves with a hatred for life. It turns you into beasts. They charged through the village like a fury, and everyone that they killed became one of theirs.
If the perished land spreads further south, then Nodon won't need any orcs, ogres, or Alfar. One human losing their life in the perished land would be enough for the madness to sweep through the land like the plague.
Your stomach turns, but you know that it's right. You've never seen the twins looking so serious. They would pit themselves against any army of orcs, but this is something beyond their power, and yours.
We need the Magi. They must rebuild the barrier. I can't believe it. The barrier has fallen. How could that happen?
Who can tell? Anything could go wrong with all that hocus-pocus.
It has held back the Perish Land since the fall of the Fifthlings. Reinforcing the barrier whenever it loses power is the primary duty of the Great Magi. I can't imagine how Nodon or anyone else could have broken through it.
You think of the demons mentioned in Garen's letter. You wonder whether it could be possible that a demon from the Outer Lands might possess powers so great that even the 6 Magi weren't ready for it.
We must go to Lot-Yonan before the Perish Land spreads further. He will know what is to be done.
Neither of your companions objects.